High above the clouds, where breathtaking views hide deadly secrets, some hikers step into the wild and never return. No signal, no footprints, no answers. These are the 5 most disturbing cases of missing hikers. Stories that remind us that sometimes the mountains keep their own. Story 1. Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon were 2 young Dutch women whose dream trip to Central America would turn into one of the most haunting disappearance cases in modern history. Kris, 21, was born on August 9, 1992 in Amersfoort, Netherlands. She was a bright, artistic student from Amersfoort studying cultural social education. Lisanne, 22, was born on September 24, 1991, in the same town. She was an athletic, kind-hearted graduate who had just earned her degree in applied psychology. Both were close friends who shared a passion for travel and adventure. After months of planning, they decided to volunteer in Panama, combining exploration with community work, a journey meant to mark the start of their adult lives. They arrived in Boquete, a picturesque mountain town in western Panama, on March 15, 2014. The women were set to start volunteer work at a local school on April 2nd, but when they arrived, they learned that the program wasn't ready for them. With a week of free time, they explored the town and planned hikes in the nearby cloud forests. One of the most popular trails was El Pianista, a scenic but treacherous path leading into dense, remote jungle. On April 1st, 2014, Kris and Lisanne decided to hike it alone, carrying only light supplies, a backpack, snacks, water, and their phones. That afternoon, they were seen having lunch with 2 young Dutch men and later were photographed by locals near the trailhead. At 11 a.m., they began the hike. Selfies recovered later from their cameras show the women smiling and relaxed as they ascended the path. But after that point, everything changed. The next day, April 2nd, neither woman showed up for their volunteer work. When their families in the Netherlands couldn't reach them, alarm grew. Search teams combed the mountains, joined by local police, guides, and even the Dutch authorities. Helicopters scanned the area, dogs tracked scent trails, and rivers were dredged. Yet no trace of Kris or Lisanne was found. 10 weeks later, a local woman turned in a blue backpack she found near a riverbank along the Culebra River, about 8 miles from where the women had been hiking. Inside were both passports, 2 phones, a digital camera, and $83 in cash. The contents were dry and well preserved, suggesting it hadn't been exposed to the elements for long. The phones told a chilling story. Records showed multiple attempts to call emergency services, beginning just hours after their hike began. First from Kris's iPhone at 4:39 p.m., then from Lisanne's Samsung shortly after. Over the next several days, dozens of calls were made to both Dutch and Panamanian emergency numbers. None connected due to poor signal. The last known activity on Lisanne's phone was on April 6th. Kris's phone, however, was powered on intermittently until April 11th, 10 days after they vanished. When investigators examined the camera, they found over 90 photos. The first few showed the women enjoying their hike, but 10 days later, in the early hours of April 8th, a series of 90 nighttime images were taken deep in the jungle. Some seemingly random, others showing what looked like a cliff, belongings, and an improvised marker made from plastic bags and sticks. The meaning of these photos remains one of the case's greatest mysteries. In June, investigators discovered bone fragments along the same river where the backpack was found. DNA confirmed they belonged to both Kris and Lisanne. A fragment of Kris's pelvic bone and Lisanne's foot, still inside her boot, were among the remains. Strangely, the bones were clean and showed no signs of trauma or animal activity, raising questions about what had really happened. Theories abound. Some believe the women became lost after accidentally venturing off the El Pianista Trail into the unmarked jungle. Disoriented and without supplies, they could have succumbed to starvation, injury, or exposure. Others suspect foul play. Locals pointed out that the area is known for criminal activity and drug trafficking, and some believe someone may have found them after they got lost. There's also speculation about the strange nighttime photos. Were they trying to signal for help or documenting something terrifying they encountered? Two young women, full of life and promise, vanished in one of the most beautiful yet unforgiving landscapes on Earth. Was it a tragic accident, or did something far darker unfold in the Panamanian jungle? Story 2. Michelle Vanek was born in 1970 and grew up in Lakewood, Colorado, a vibrant, family-centered suburb just west of Denver. From an early age, she was known for her warm personality, her strong sense of faith, and her natural determination. Friends described her as a woman who balanced grace and grit, devoted to her family, passionate about fitness, and always willing to take on new challenges. By her mid-30s, Michelle was a proud mother of 4 children and worked as an administrative professional for a local company. Despite her busy schedule, she found time to stay active, running, biking, and hiking in the Colorado outdoors. Her faith played a major role in her life, and she was deeply involved with her church community. Michelle's family described her as a loving, reliable mother who always put her children first. But beyond her responsibilities at home, Michelle had personal goals. One of them was climbing a 14er in Colorado. That means reaching the summit of a mountain taller than 14,000 feet, a badge of honor among hikers and outdoor enthusiasts. For Michelle, it wasn't about bragging rights. It was about proving something to herself. On September 24th, 2005, Michelle set out to climb Mount of the Holy Cross, one of Colorado's most striking 14ers. That morning, she joined her hiking partner, Eric Sawyer, an experienced climber. They began their ascent from the Half Moon trailhead around 6 a.m., expecting a long, difficult but rewarding journey to the 14,005-foot summit. The trail wound through forests, steep ridges, and loose rock fields. As the hours passed, Michelle began to feel exhausted and short of breath. The altitude was taking its toll, around 13,500 feet. Just a few hundred vertical feet from the top. She told Eric she couldn't go any farther. The two discussed what to do next. They agreed on a meeting point, a specific location lower down the trail, where Michelle could rest while Eric made a quick push to the summit. He told her he'd be back soon. But when Eric returned to the meeting spot, Michelle was gone. He searched the surrounding area, calling her name, but there was no answer. Thinking she might have started back toward the trailhead, Eric hurried down the mountain, yet there was no sign of her anywhere. As daylight faded, panic set in. By nightfall, search and rescue teams were deployed. What began as a missing person case quickly became one of the largest mountain searches in Colorado history. More than 700 rescuers, helicopters, drones, and tracking dogs combed the rugged wilderness for days. They found nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no backpack, not even a clue. It was as if the mountain had swallowed her whole. The terrain around Mount of the Holy Cross is notoriously treacherous. Steep slopes, loose boulders, and countless side trails that lead to nowhere. Some rescuers believed Michelle may have taken a wrong turn or fallen into a hidden crevice. Others thought she might have collapsed from exhaustion or hypothermia during the freezing night. But without any trace, no one could say for sure. As days turned to weeks, hope faded. Michelle's husband and children, who had waited at the base of the mountain every day, were forced to return home without answers. For 19 long years, the case remained cold. Michelle Vanek's name became part of Colorado hiking lore, a haunting mystery that left even veteran rescuers puzzled. Then, in September 2024, the silence broke. A group of all-women hikers exploring a remote section of the Holy Cross Wilderness made a shocking discovery. Human remains and personal belongings scattered along a steep, isolated area near French Creek. Authorities confirmed what many had feared. They belonged to Michelle Vanek. Her discovery, nearly 2 decades later, brought a heartbreaking end to one of Colorado's most enduring mysteries. For Michelle's family, the news was both devastating and relieving. At last, she'd been found. But the questions that lingered for years still remain. Why wasn't she able to make it to the meeting point that day? Did she lose her way in the maze of unmarked paths? Or did the mountain itself conceal her until it was ready to give her back? Even now, no one knows exactly what happened in those final moments. Michelle Vanek's story is a sobering reminder that even in beauty, nature holds danger, and that sometimes answers come only when the mountains decide to speak. Story 3. Esther Dingley was born in Durham, England in 1981, a bright, free-spirited woman with a love for travel, fitness, and the natural world. After earning a master's degree from Oxford University, she seemed destined for a traditional life, but Esther longed for something more. Together with her partner of 18 years, Dan Colgate, she traded stability for freedom. The couple converted a camper van and began traveling across Europe, documenting their minimalist lifestyle and mountain adventures on their blog. They lived simply but fully, exploring remote trails, meeting strangers, and chasing peace. By late 2020, during the height of Europe's COVID-19 lockdowns, Esther and Dan were staying at a farmhouse in Gascony, France. Restrictions were strict, but solo outdoor exercise was still allowed. After months of isolation, Esther decided to embark on a short solo hiking trip through the Pyrenees Mountains near the French-Spanish border. On November 15, 2020, she set off in their camper van toward Benasque, Spain, eager for one last adventure before winter. Over the next week, she posted updates online, bright selfies, stunning peaks, captions filled with calm and joy. Then came November 21, 2020. Her final known contact. That afternoon, Esther and Dan had a 90-second video call, a cheerful, intimate conversation that would later haunt him. She looked happy and relaxed, surrounded by the snowy Pyrenees. During the call, she told Dan she planned to spend the night at Refuge de Venasque, a small, unstaffed mountain shelter used by hikers. She promised to check in again soon. It's unclear if she ever made it there. The next day, November 22nd, Esther texted Dan to say she had reached the summit of Pic de Sauvegarde, her final confirmed location. Then, silence. When she failed to return by November 25th, Dan reported her missing. Search and rescue teams from both France and Spain launched one of the largest operations the region had ever seen. Helicopters, drones, and mountain patrols scoured the valleys and peaks, but no sign of Esther. No gear, no clothing, not even footprints, was ever found. As winter storms rolled in, the search was forced to pause. Speculation spread quickly. Had she fallen, been caught in bad weather, or did something darker happen on that mountain? Then, 9 months later, came the breakthrough. On July 23, 2021, a mountaineer discovered a skull remains near the path below the Port de la Glaire, a mountain pass a few kilometers west of where Esther was last seen. A week later, on July 30, 2021, DNA confirmed the skull belonged to Esther Dingley. Just days later, on August 9th, 2021, Dan himself discovered the rest of her remains in the same area. According to the official investigation released on August 13th, 2021, Esther's death was ruled accidental, most likely caused by a fall from a high ridge. Authorities stated that her remains and scattered belongings were consistent with post-mortem movement by wildlife. But not everyone was convinced. Dan publicly expressed doubts, questioning how she could have been missed in earlier searches and why her equipment was found in unusual positions. Some wondered whether bad weather alone could explain her death, or if she had encountered someone on the trail. Despite these lingering mysteries, Dan brought her remains home. On October 1st, 2021, he released a final statement on their shared Facebook page. Esther has been laid to rest. Thank you to everyone who shared her story, who searched, who cared. Esther Dingley's disappearance remains one of Europe's most haunting modern mysteries, a story of love, freedom, and the danger hidden in even the most breathtaking landscapes. One moment, she was smiling on a video call, promising to come home soon. The next, she was gone, lost among the silent peaks of the Pyrenees. Story 4. Barry J. Tragen was a 68-year-old man from Columbia Falls, Montana, a quiet, small-town resident known for his kind heart, deep intellect, and unwavering love for the wilderness. A Vietnam War veteran and retired teacher, Barry had spent decades hiking the trails of Montana. He knew the mountains, rivers, and forests like the back of his hand. Friends described him as strong for his age, careful, and always prepared, a man who respected nature's power but never feared it. On July 22, 2020, Barry set out for what should have been another peaceful hike in one of his favorite places on Earth, Glacier National Park. The park spans over 1 million acres of rugged beauty, glacial peaks, alpine lakes, and dense forest. That morning, Barry entered the park near Huckleberry Lookout Trail, a 12-mile trek that climbs steeply through isolated terrain with panoramic views of the Rockies. Barry was hiking alone, something he had done many times before, but this time he wouldn't return. Days passed. Then, on July 27th, park rangers noticed something unsettling. Barry's car was still parked near Kintla Lake, exactly where he had left it. The vehicle was dusty, untouched, and locked. Inside were personal belongings that suggested he never made it back from his hike. Search teams were immediately dispatched. Helicopters scanned from above, while ground teams, including scent tracking dogs, combed through the dense forest. Drones and thermal imaging were deployed to detect any heat signatures. For nearly a week, the area around Kintla Lake and Huckleberry Lookout was meticulously searched. Yet there was no sign of Barry, no backpack, no hiking poles, no trace of clothing or gear. It was as if he had stepped off the trail and disappeared into thin air. Then, on August 4th, 2020, searchers made a small but chilling discovery. A pair of sunglasses in Kintla Creek, just downstream from the area Barry was believed to have been hiking. Investigators believed they belonged to him. But beyond that single item, nothing else was ever found. Searchers described the area as brutally challenging. Deep ravines, thick vegetation, and unpredictable wildlife. Glacier National Park is breathtaking, but also dangerous. One misstep near a cliff or stream can have fatal consequences. The most plausible theory is that Barry fell from a steep section of trail or lost his footing on one of the unmarked ridges that drop sharply into rocky basins. Even a short fall could prove deadly, and in such terrain, a body could remain hidden for years or forever. Another theory suggests he may have suffered a medical emergency, perhaps a heart attack or stroke, and collapsed off trail where visibility was low. But even if that were the case, search teams expected to find some trace. Yet, The wilderness gave nothing back. A few people speculated about foul play, though no signs pointed to it. Glacier attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors annually, and though remote, the trails are not deserted. Still, no one came forward with any credible sightings or strange encounters from that day. There's also a quieter, more haunting theory that Barry might have chosen to disappear. Some who knew him mentioned he had become reflective in recent years, deeply contemplative about life and aging, but his family firmly rejected that idea. Barry was close to them, had plans for the following week, and left no sign of distress or intention to leave. To this day, no trace of Barry J. Tragen has ever been recovered beyond that single pair of sunglasses. His disappearance remains one of Glacier National Park's most perplexing mysteries, a reminder of how even the most experienced outdoorsman can vanish in a place both majestic and merciless. Did Barry simply lose his footing on the trails he loved? Or did something else, something hidden deep within the silence of Glacier National Park, claim him that day? Story 5. Julian Sands was a British actor known for his magnetic screen presence and refined charm. Born on January 4, 1958, in Otley, West Yorkshire, England, he studied at the Central School of Speech and Drama in London before entering the film industry. Over a career spanning more than 4 decades, Julian became known for roles in A Room with a View, 1985, Warlock, 1989, and Arachnophobia, 1990. Off-screen, he was a devoted husband, father, and passionate mountaineer, a man who found peace in nature's silence. On January 13, 2023, Julian Sands set out for a solo hike in the San Gabriel Mountains, specifically around Mount Baldy, one of Southern California's most challenging peaks. Standing over 10,000 feet, it's a favorite among experienced hikers, but is notorious for sudden weather shifts, steep trails, and icy winter conditions. Julian was an avid hiker and climber, well prepared and familiar with the risks. He had summited peaks around the world, from the Andes to the Alps. That afternoon, he parked his car near Baldy Bowl Trail, known for its scenic views, but also for its dangers during winter. When he didn't return home, his family reported him missing. Search and rescue teams quickly mobilized. But worsening weather, high winds, snow, and risk of avalanches forced them to suspend ground efforts. Over the next several weeks, searches continued intermittently as conditions allowed. Drones and helicopters were deployed, yet no sign of Julian was found. The case drew international attention. Fans, friends, and colleagues from Hollywood expressed deep concern as days turned into weeks with no updates, even with multiple agencies involved, including the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. The treacherous terrain made it nearly impossible to access certain parts of the mountain. Months later, on June 24, 2023, hikers in the Mount Baldy area discovered human remains in a remote section of wilderness. DNA testing confirmed they belonged to Julian Sands. The exact date of his death remains unknown due to the length of time it took to find his body. Authorities believe he died sometime between January 13, 2023, the day he was reported missing, and June 24, 2023, when his remains were found. His death was officially confirmed on June 27, 2023. The leading theory is that Julian was caught in a sudden change of weather and succumbed to the extreme elements. In January, Mount Baldy often faces whiteout conditions and temperatures below freezing. Even the most experienced hikers can lose their bearings or suffer from hypothermia. Experts believe Julian may have slipped or become stranded after visibility dropped, a tragic but all too common fate among winter hikers in the area. Some speculated that Julian may have pushed himself too far physically, perhaps due to the thrill and serenity he found in isolation. Those close to him, however, described his approach to hiking as calculated and respectful, not reckless. He was known for his preparedness and discipline. A small number of online theorists floated the idea that he could have staged his disappearance or become lost intentionally to escape the pressures of fame, a romantic but unfounded notion. His family dismissed it, sharing that Julian had been in good spirits and was planning upcoming projects. Ultimately, the mountain kept its silence for months before finally releasing the truth. Julian's remains were found not far from where searchers had initially focused, a reminder of how nature can conceal even the most visible of men. Julian Sands lived a life filled with creativity, adventure, and an unshakable love for the wild. His disappearance and the discovery of his remains serve as both a tragedy and a testament to the unpredictable power of nature. How could a man so experienced, so attuned to the dangers of the mountains, be lost so suddenly? The San Gabriel Mountains hold the answer, but like so many before them, they remain silent. In each of these stories, nature stands silent, vast, beautiful, and unforgiving. What began as a simple adventure turned into a haunting mystery, leaving behind only questions and the echoes of those who vanished. The mountains may never speak, but their silence tells us one chilling truth. Not every trail leads home.